All right. Hey everyone, welcome to the Conveyor Community Call for June 27th, 2024. My name is Dylan Murray, and I will be hosting today. I don't see any new members, excuse me, in the meeting, so we'll skip over that bit. We can go ahead and just get quickly into the outstanding demos and presentations for today. So first up, we've got David Zager, who's going to present on integrating the .NET Analyzer with Contra. So David, would you like to share your screen?
I will do that. Let's see if I can share the right one. Everyone able to see this?
Yep.
All right, so it's been a long time coming, but we've been talking about .NET Framework stuff for a long while now. So today, what we want to talk about is Contra for .NET Framework on Windows. You see 3 cheers for PowerShell because I've been playing a lot in the PowerShell the past few months. So I wanted to give it credit where it's due. A quick overview, what we're going to talk about is just a reminder of why we're doing this exactly, why this is so important to us. Jump into where we are now, what are the milestones that we've achieved. A quick demo, and then talk about what's next. So why are we doing this? The big motivator here is .NET is really popular for enterprise application developers, and a lot of people keep clamoring for this specific capability in Konveyor. So what we want to do is make Konveyor useful to enterprise users who want to perform rules-based analysis of .NET Framework Windows-only applications. So if you've been following along as we've progressed, we started with the basic .NET stuff on that's modern and can be run in a Linux container. We played around with .NET Framework type applications in very special scenarios, very hard-coded, special Snowflake servers and all that stuff. More recently, we moved that to a container-based solution with Windows containers. And what we're working on today is to talk about an actual solution that people can, hopefully, we pray with it, they can use it and it'll work well. So what we have now is we have Windows container images for the big essential components of command line based analysis. So there's the Analyzer LSP is now available as a Windows container. The .NET external provider is available as a Windows container. The static report container, that's where you get the pretty file view, and Contra. So that is where Contra is where we kind of bundle those things together and make it work as a cohesive thing. So we have a rule set that targets the .NET Framework applications. You'll see a link that should be a hyperlink, but as of right now, that rule set is in name only. It exists as a bucket for us to add rules to, and for me to be able to do this demo showing that it actually works. In the coming weeks, you'll see more additions to that rule set as we work through it. So the big thing that we're talking about today is Contra has been updated to support analyzing of these .NET Framework applications on Windows. So just to kind of recap, the issue with .NET Framework applications is that they are Windows only. And if there were a way there is no actual way for us to pull a .NET Framework application into a Linux environment and analyze it. So we need it in a Windows environment. So what we've aimed to do is to containerize all of the important bits so that we can bring a .NET Framework application into that container and do the analysis and extract the results. All right, so now I'm going to venture and try and do a demo. Let me see if I can do a window. I'll just do How far can I go? All right, you guys able to see this? Should
Are you,
be a PowerShell.
are you able to zoom in just a little bit?
More.
Or enhance?
And you go full boomer. Are you able to see?
Nothing changed.
You are showing source code that doesn't look like
Didn't look
PowerShell, so maybe it's a
yeah,
wrong
that looked
window.
like okay.
All right, so now are you able to see Windows?
Yes, and that's
Are you looking
full
at a
boomer
PowerShell
mode.
now?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
looks perfect. Thank you.
Okay. What were you looking at before? A totally different window?
Yeah,
yes.
go code.
Well, that could have been embarrassing. So I'm glad it was just a terminal. Okay, so what you'll see is that I'm actually on a Windows host. I swear I'm not faking it. This is it's a VM in Amazon somewhere. And what I wanted to show was we have the contra.exe that you can see here. I got that from copying the contra.exe out of the Windows container that we've built. Another thing I wanted to mention really quick is we were able to, all of those Windows container images, we were able to bake them into the same manifest. So what that means is that if you pull on a Windows host that's only able to run Windows containers, it will pull the Windows container version of, say, Contra. So it's available at the same tag. There's no special tagging. It's the same image name. So I have the contra.exe, and I'm going to do it this way because there's no way I'd be able to type it out correctly on the first try. So what you'll see here is we're running contra.exe. Analyzing the input is our Nerd Dinner application that we've been using over and over and over again. We're calling overwrite, but we don't actually need that in this case. We're upping the log level, and we have a label selector for sources.NET Framework. Any questions before I hit enter and try and, I'm just gonna hit it and then see. One of the main complications that we ran into as this is running is a lot of the logic had to be rewritten for handling the specifics of Windows container networking and Windows volume sharing with those Windows containers, some file pathing stuff. So that was took a majority of the time in actually making this work. So what you see now is, so we have a static report that's created. I can copy, open. I should be able to. So here is the static report for the application of Nerd Dinner. And you see 3 mandatory issues. These are the same ones that you would have seen previously. In the dinner's controller, there's these references to HTTP not found that doesn't exist in the newer .NET Core, .NET 8, those things. So we have the 3 references, and it shows us the line that those can be found on. And that's really it. If I stop sharing this and I go quickly back to sharing the slide, what you would see is the next steps is for us to actually add rules that would help you to migrate from .NET Framework to something like .NET 8. And the plan is to do this using Nerd Dinner to see if that's something that we can actually successfully migrate from .NET Framework all the way up to .NET 8. have a base rule set that we have an idea of what's going on, and to find any issues with our provider, the .NET external provider, how you actually write those rules and what they'll look like. Any questions?
Yeah, I wanted to say that those rules have been contributed by our friends at IBM. They had them, sitting around somewhere, and we had a conversation with them, and they offered that to us and have shared them to the community. So kudos to them, and of course, kudos to you, because this is brilliant, man.
Yeah,
I
great
love
stuff,
the
David.
PowerShell. It's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
It's great.
Awesome. Thank you, David. That's good stuff. Any questions for David before we move on to the next one? All right. I'm going to turn it over to Sam, who is going to present on platform awareness.
Okay, let's see. There we go. Okay. So I brought up platform awareness as a topic 2 weeks ago in the community call, mostly to note that there was a draft enhancement up for that. I wanted to take this time to explain what platform awareness is, what the motivation for it is, what we're trying to accomplish, and what that means for the project, what would have to change to support this. So before I go on, I want to define a couple terms here. A platform is basically the platform's deployment environment. This could be a number of different things. A really obvious example for us would be like a Kubernetes or an OpenShift cluster. That could also be a VM hypervisor. It could be a enterprise Java runtime of some kind. What I'm going to call platform-aware application analysis. This is analysis of an application in its live deployment environment. So this would be a narrowly scoped analysis, for example, of an application running in its namespace that is going to help identify roadblocks to like rehosting or replatforming that application. And then what I want to call platform analysis, which is actually analysis of a platform itself, like at a broad scope, like a cluster-wide analysis that can help identify higher level migration blockers, maybe cluster-wide networking issues or expected cluster-wide resources, things along that line that need to be carried over to whatever the target would be. So the motivation is really in order to more fully support the Konveyor methodology, we need Konveyor to be able to discover details about applications that aren't present in the source. These can be things that are like security and availability characteristics, resource requirements, or other environmental assumptions about the security environment that the application is operating within, its networking environment, other incidental applications that it might have dependencies on that are not clearly specified in the source. The other thing about it is that the nominal configuration of the application on paper may have drifted from what's actually deployed in the cluster, and we want to try and pick those things up. So with that information, then hopefully we can enable Konveyor to, in combination with the existing source and binary analysis and the questionnaire-driven assessment, recommend a migration or a modernization strategy. Then hopefully this sets us up for, in the future, being able to do things like integrating with Crane or asset generation based on what we now know about the application's deployment environment. So here's a couple examples of use cases, things that we could learn. If we have an example of an application in EKS that we're considering migrating into ROSA, maybe there's some simple stuff, ingresses, stock Kubernetes ingresses that need to be converted to OpenShift routes, or IRSA remappings, pods and security groups need to be mapped onto AWS IAM roles. And as I'm migrating stuff around, the security service accounts and so on may have changed, and I'm going to have to make sure that those mappings are in place in the target. If I'm going from vSphere to KubeVirt, a big thing there is, the hardware differences between the hosts. If I have VMs that are taking advantage of GPUs that are on my vSphere ESX hosts, they're going to have to be present in KubeVirt, and that may require special configuration. And then, I use the example here of Tanzu to OpenShift, but really this could be any cube to cube sort of thing. Is the application depending on cluster scoped resources or other or custom resource definitions that just are not present in the destination, that are outside of the scope of the initial application. So before I go on and talk about what would have to change in the project, are there any questions so far about definitions or the concept? Okay. So as far as what kind of has to happen here, we need to introduce platforms as a first-class concept in the hub inventory. It would sort of have its own management user experience. Basically, a top-level thing, just like applications, it'd be tagged, managed the same way. They'd have stakeholders assigned, etc. They can be associated to applications via deployments, and what that does is that tells you where an application basically lives in that platform. It would relate the necessary credentials to access, say, that application's namespace, or whatever the case may be for the particular platform on a case by case basis. And then finally, the platform itself can be a subject of analyses and tasks independent of applications to do that broad scoped analysis to pick up general issues that may affect every migration. We would need to expand the application analysis wizard to offer this platform aware analysis of applications in addition to code analysis. Thankfully, that doesn't necessarily require a whole lot because the multi-provider work that's already been done can already pick up a new provider that's aware of platforms and can do the right thing with the application that's been pulled down out of the hub inventory, assuming it finds the right credentials. So there's not a whole lot of work there to do to expose that. Now, the other thing we would need for the platform portion of that is the new analysis wizard and reports specifically for platforms. Again, this is going to be a lot of reuse, but it's new views that are going to be necessary. But the meat and potatoes of it is we need new providers and rule sets for platforms that we're going to support. Kubernetes and possibly vSphere to me seem like the most obvious starting places, as we have a lot of interesting Kubernetes related use cases. EKS Tarosa is a really just an easy one to point to. There's some easy wins there. We have a lot of domain knowledge within the team about that kind of thing. And there's already been some work done on a Kubernetes provider that's able to inspect a Kubernetes cluster that we can build on. Likewise with vSphere, although maybe there may not be as many obvious use cases right out of the gate. But the advantage we have here is, again, a lot of domain knowledge in the team from past work with Forklift. And there's already a lot of validation rules that exist in Forklift that could be borrowed over into a rule set for migration to KubeVirt. As with all analysis related work in Konveyor, the value really comes out of the rule sets. So writing a provider is one thing, but the rule set is really where everything has to happen. This is the most important thing for us to get right, is that we have these carefully scoped rule sets that understand like specific source to target mappings and can encode the domain knowledge we have about migration. Because if we don't have this portion of it right, if we don't have useful rule sets, obviously the whole thing's largely a waste. There are links in the slide deck just to the enhancement itself, which is open for feedback, and previous work on the Kubernetes provider, which you guys can inspect at your leisure. And are there any questions on any of that? I know I kind of whirlwinded through a whole lot of material there. Sorry, it seems like I'm having network problems.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Sam. Good presentation. Appreciate it. Any questions for Sam before we move on? All right. The last demo is Pranav. and he's going to demonstrate a new feature in 0.5 called Application Insights.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Before, I just wanted to quickly go over what Application Insights is, what the motivation was behind having this change. So there's two reasons why we are adding this feature. The main reason is that in a static report that gets generated, or even so I'll just focus on static report now, but the output that the analysis generates, we get two kinds of information. One is we get migration issues, which you see, which is what you're seeing on screen right now. And the second thing we get is technologies tags, which is basically saying or identifying technologies, frameworks, and application uses. And both of these pieces of information is generated by running rules. So technology tags generation rules have look exactly the same like the rules that generate these issues, except the kind of information that they produce. And until now, we were basically throwing away all the detailed information that we used to get from technology tags, such as line numbers or exact source, like exact location in the source code where a rule matched and that tag got generated. So we had like we have had folks from the community saying that we want to expose this information in more detail, so that so that users can actually pinpoint where a technology is used. This is particularly useful in cases where you're using a deprecated technology, which is not a migration issue right now, but it can be an issue in future. But the thing with this information is that we don't have, or the rule authors cannot really tell at given time what a fix is going to be. This is just an informational thing that they want to expose to the users. To do that, there were some rules that kind of worked around this problem. And we can see an example of such a rule in front of us, which is the JBoss EJB3. What this rule is doing, it's basically trying to find usage of a EJB descriptor, and it doesn't have an effort. And it gets surfaced as a migration issue because the rule author wanted to basically provide this information about where exactly this descriptor is being used, in addition to the technology tag it generates. So we can see that there should be an EJB technology tag here, EJB, I'm sorry. And in addition to that, we see this issue which has zero effort. And it doesn't mean anything in terms of migration. So to solve this problem, we basically did not want to pollute the migration issues view, where we don't want to show anything that doesn't have an effort or a category associated with it, and that's because this is not really a migration issue. This is just an informational issue that exposes some more information along with technology tag. So for these two reasons, we propose something called as analysis insights. So analysis insights will be pieces of information generated from rules that don't have an effort defined. So they could be technology tagging rules, or they can have the message as we see in this example here. So depending upon what is defined in a rule, we generate technology insight as well as tags. So the full uh, uh, kind of all the scenarios that can happen are kind of summarized in this table. So if a rule has a tag but not a message and has an effort of 0, then we generate a tag and insight. So insight is basically the same information that you see in an issue, but it won't have an effort. So it doesn't have a call to action per se. It just exists for informational purposes, and it is really just targeted towards someone who is familiar with the application tech stack, and uh, they want to see in detail where exactly a technology is used. So I have example rules that I created that kind of show all these different possibilities which will generate a technology insight. I'm sorry, application insight. So if you look at this first rule, it's just looking for Java files and it's going to create a Java tag. But along with that, since this does not have an effort, it's also going to create an application insight showing where exactly in the source code these files were found. There's a second example where I'm trying to find a reference to a deprecated dependency and or an old dependency that needs to be upgraded. There's no effort because it is not a migration issue. This is just an info for informational purposes. So the effort is set to 0, but I also have a message on this rule saying that the JUnit dependency needs to be upgraded to latest. And there's the third case where I have uh, an actual migration issue, and there's a non-zero effort value associated with that. Now let's head over to the static report output of these 3 rules. So the issue that had a positive effort value shows up in the issued section. And you can see that there's an insights. Well, actually, I'll go back all the way back to the top. So in the static report, when I click on this application, I see application details, and in that I see issues for that particular application, and I see a new tab, insights, which is basically showing the same information that you would see with issues, except you won't see an effort value, or you won't see a category of the issue, because this only exists for informational purposes. So as you can tell, found Java files was actually a tagging rule. So in the static report, I see the Java created as a tag, but along with that, I also see more information about that tag, where exactly what exactly triggered that tag, and on the output that gets generated, these are tied back to the technology tags using a label. So we can actually make a search in the output using those labels, like which tag created which insight. So all of that would be part of the output YAML that gets generated. Yeah, go ahead, Ramon.
If you click on app.java, would you be getting a? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So this is an test app, so I don't have any content here. I just
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Understood.
Yeah, but you get everything from that you'll get from an issue.
Just a small
Exactly.
nitpick in there in the insights
Mhm.
view. Click again on found Java files. You have file and total incidents. I guess it would be total occurrences instead, because this is not a
Oh.
problem per se.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, I think we just kept it incidents because the analyzer API calls it incidents. Anyway. Okay. All right. But that's it. So with the application insights, what happens is that we see a new tab in the static report. And why static report? Because this is really just targeted towards someone who knows what's going on in an application. And we decided that we would do this for the offline output first, and then we'll work towards, if needed, getting this information surfaced in the Konveyor hub at portfolio level.
Pranav, is there a restriction on what kind of applications could be used for the verification of this feature?
No, it really depends on what kind of rules there are. But for any application, if you are saying technology tags, you should see insights for that application, which basically correspond to that tag.
Okay, so I sent a message on chat and I used this particular application. I analyzed it with the custom rule that's mentioned in the enhancement doc on the latest nightly on June 20th. I believe feature freeze was June 20th. So, and I, with this application and with this custom rule, I was not able to see the insights tab in the static report.
Maybe
also-
because that custom rule did not have a tag or so as I said, the rule has to follow this criteria in order to generate a application insight. So first of all, the most important thing is that rule has to have zero effort or effort that is not defined. So if there's a non-zero effort value, it's not going to create an application insight. It will instead create a migration issue.
Yes, so as far as I remember, the rule that's mentioned in the enhancement doc does have effort as 0.
Okay, so it could be that the rule did not match or something. I think you're referring to this rule.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe that rule. Yeah, we can figure out a test case for you to test this. This is just an example rule that I took from our existing rule set. So this was not meant to be used with a test case because I don't know if this rule works for the application that you used, but we can definitely figure out a way to test this.
I think tackle test app should generate plenty of insights. The tackle test application that we use for CI/CD, that one should generate plenty of insights.
Insights.
Yeah. With the discovery itself, we should be getting plenty of those.
Yeah, thanks, Pranav. I'll get with you offline.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Pranav. Any questions? All right. I will take it over now. I do have a few discussion topics. I don't know that we're going to have time for as much time as I'd hoped, but I stuck Sam and myself's name on this because this actually came up out of a conversation we were having yesterday, and then I had posted something about this in Slack. I didn't really get any bites, but I do feel like we kind of have a little bit of a gap with some of the changes we've made for multi-language support and supporting binary analysis, because there's a couple obvious things that I think are easy to fix, and a couple things that I think might need a little bit more thinking through. And I just kind of want to get some opinions on this. I try to just list out the 3 things that I thought were obvious. The first was that, obviously, if I just pull this up so everyone is looking at the same thing. Right. Sorry. The first thing that's obvious is when I go create a new application and I select binary, this is all very Java specific details, right? This wouldn't make any sense for like a Golang binary because these are all like Maven Central specific bits, right? So that's kind of the first obvious thing that I was thinking through, that we either for now need to clarify specifically this is for Java only, and refer other language users to uploading the binary during the application analysis wizard. That was kind of the first thought. And again, I don't know if there's any, pause me or ask questions if you think I'm totally off the mark here. The second bit was that discovery is not actually going to be capable of reliably providing a language tag for binaries, right? There's obviously some hacks we can do about this, like if the file ends in .jar or .war or .ear, yeah, it's probably a Java file or Java binary. If it's .py, it's probably a Python executable, right? However, I don't think there's really a standard way. I spent like 30 minutes looking at this yesterday after Sam brought this up to me. It's not really any tools that let you easily introspect like the underlying source language behind it, at least reliably. I mean, there's some stuff you can do for Java like on a case-by-case basis. But what's going to happen today is discovery is going to fail. It's using Elizer, which doesn't take this into account. Discovery is always going to fail. So I was talking this through a little bit with Sam that I think there's probably some changes we need to make where the discovery process just warns you if it's a binary analysis, or if the application is defined with binary coordinates, like, hey, you're gonna have to set the language tag manually because we can't automatically introspect this, right? Again, I'll pause there. Is that so far? Am I missing something? If you guys all agree with this, I'm going to go open issues, make sure we track this stuff. But I think it's kind of a little bit of an oversight that we had with the multi-language stuff.
Yeah, there's a discussion to be had for sure. We need to figure out what the best solution is.
Can we even do binary analysis on anything other than Java at the moment?
Oh, well, that's kind of the last thing here, right?
I don't
So
think
I kind
so.
of think the provider needs to define that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to work for Go unless you do, I think, like the debug builds. I don't think you can
Yep.
really decompile it with the original symbols.
Correct. You cannot.
Python
this broadly
would
does
work.
not work.
Python, you're gonna have to like compile a C binary, right? So you'd have to do the same thing with debug symbols and everything else.
Even
don't
if
know
you
about
have debug
.NET.
symbols, you're really hard up to try and analyze.
Yeah, I mean you're
binary.
not gonna be able to find anything that you care about, right?
So I don't know what we do today. Like, is this part of the capabilities for each provider that it says, hey, I support binary? Is that something we need to change and add?
Potentially. I think this is a really good question and something that we need to talk through.
Okay.
I'm just making sure that my understanding was correct about, what we even can do today.
Yeah, no, you're exactly on the mark. Okay. As long as it sounds like there is a very valid concern here, I'll just kind of pick up the baton and start the conversation somewhere and file some issues around it. I just kind of wanted to raise the alarm on that because Sam brought it to my attention. It slipped my mind as well. In the interest of time, unless there's any more questions on this, I'm going to skip past it and then continue the conversation elsewhere. My next topic was around the 050 Alpha 2. I really wanted to cut a second alpha this week to capture the last outstanding bits for language discovery. I just wanted to do a quick check-in on kind of where we stand and making sure if you aren't updating this table, you can help me update it. Because I was going to wait for a few issues here to merge and get into done state before I cut the second alpha. Specifically, Tackle UI 1934. There's a couple things that I felt like I'd like to get in, like 460 for the analyzer, assuming the PR that's up is ready to be merged soon. So I really need help getting kind of reviews in, someone telling me if you need me to wait or not wait. But the main thing is I really want to get 1934 into an alpha build so we can start seeing some of the UI improvements around language discovery. So are there any like red flags or other issues I should be tracking other than 1934 to cut a second alpha today or tomorrow? Okay, I'm going to just assume that's a no. I also think we might have been missing a couple outstanding bugs for the static report bit for the .NET CLI build that I cut last week. So cutting the second alpha is going to kind of just shore up all that stuff that might have squeezed in right after feature freeze. I'm just going to post another reminder in case you didn't see my email about this. Please do not merge anything in the main if it's not meant for 0.5. We intend to cut the release branches next week when we cut the beta. And then we can start the process of opening main up for 0.6 work, and then follow the normal cherry pick process. But please don't merge anything to main unless you want it to be included in 0.5. We're in a kind of a lockdown state for only bug fixes at this point. Any other questions on Alpha 2? And then lastly, just a reminder, we are in the 0.6 call for enhancement phase now. So obviously Sam presented on platform awareness today, which is going to be a feature we intend to include in 0.6. If you have other things you're aware of that are coming down the pipeline, please just alert us either in the community call or the planning calls so that we're keeping an eye out and helping you get reviews. But just a reminder that we're in that window today. So, all right, like 30 seconds to spare. Any other last topics you all like to discuss while we're together? All right, thank you, everyone. This was a full meeting, so that's always fun. Have a good rest of the day, and I'll talk to you later.